shining bright like the healing rays. 420 patients, we stand as one. Safe access for everyone. Oh, we rise up, lifted higher. Medicine fueled by love and fire. Together we blaze, together we laugh. Patients for safe access. That's the
following production has been brought to you by the Hippie Broadcasting Network, WTHC Radio, and Stoner Records. Now, here's your host, Summer Parker.
To episode 2 of Patients for Safe Access. We are here live today from the Paseo Pad in Oklahoma City, and the wonderful, beautiful lady sitting beside me is Miss Cyndi Munson, Representative Munson, who is running for governor of the state of Oklahoma, hence the signs.
Oh, yes.
So I wanted to give a brief introduction to those of you that are not familiar with her background and who she is, because you really should be. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our show. Tonight, we are honored to welcome House Democratic Leader and 2026 gubernatorial candidate Cyndi Munson to the show.
Ow! It's like Oprah.
You can tell we have a live audience tonight. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be discussing things like healthcare, education, medical marijuana policy, government transparency, the hitch in my giddy up, and issues impacting Oklahoma families and patients, right? So the Oklahoma medical marijuana program and market is increasingly in the national news. And myself, amongst other several colleagues who are in this crowd today and some that are not here, we have put together a comprehensive report and implemented 2 different research studies. And the comprehensive report is about the state of the Oklahoma medical marijuana market. We have now made national news with this, and we are having discussions about key findings all the time. Dr. Mary McNabb, her socials, TikTok, go look, guys. There are key findings almost every day being discussed on there. The current governor recently called to end our medical marijuana program in his State of the State address. He uses a report that has outdated data and uses inconsistent methodology. Our report sheds a new light, a different light, but still highlights the challenges in the Oklahoma medical marijuana program. So including the challenges around lab testing, which is another hitch in my giddy up.
Yes, and how we met.
Yes, recalls, patient safety, and transparency. So I'm excited to discuss these things with you tonight, of course. And let's see, sorry, I'm reading off of a script if you can't tell this time. I can't remember all of it, so I try. Representative Cyndi Munson is an Oklahoma State Representative, nonprofit leader, and candidate for governor of Oklahoma in 2026. Raised in Lawton as the daughter of a Vietnam War veteran and a South Korean immigrant, Munson grew up in a working-class family that frequently struggled to make ends meet, moving multiple times throughout your childhood, while her father worked several jobs to support the family. She became the first person in her family to graduate from college. Yeah. Attending the University of Central Oklahoma through the Oklahoma's Promise program. And that is something I definitely want to learn more about, because I have a 15-year-old on that one. Before entering public office, Munson spent more than a decade working in the nonprofit sector, including leadership roles with the Girl Scouts of Western Oklahoma, and organizations supporting children and families impacted by incarceration. Elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives in 2015, she became the first Asian American woman elected to the Oklahoma Legislature and now serves as the Democratic leader in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. During her legislative career, lost my place. She has led bipartisan efforts to repeal the state grocery tax, expand funding for public education, advocate for healthcare access, and to protect Oklahoma families. She has also been a leading voice opposing some of the state's most controversial legislation, including strict abortion bans, attacks on LGBTQ youth, mandates involving religion in public schools, and challenges to tribal sovereignty. Now running for governor of Oklahoma in 2026, Munson's campaign focuses on strengthening public education, improving economic opportunity, increasing government accountability, and building a more inclusive and forward-looking future for Oklahoma and hopefully our program. She is widely recognized for her collaborative leadership style, commitment to public service, and advocacy for policies that improve the lives of everyday Oklahomans. So, opening personal question.
Here I am.
Would you mind providing a little bit more background if there's anything I left out?
Sure, yeah. You covered it. That's my whole life right there. Easy peasy.
Thank you, Marion.
Yeah.
Marion did this for me.
Great job. Great job.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm happy to share more, but thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here.
Yes.
One thing I did want to highlight, like you mentioned, the Oklahoma's Promise program. I think that just shows what investment in Oklahomans looks like. I have two parents. My mother, who, like as mentioned, my mom is from Seoul, South Korea, so she doesn't even have an American education. My dad joined the military. He didn't go to college, which is what brought our family to Oklahoma. My dad did ultimately raise my sister and I as a single father, taking full custody of us. And but we were in Lawton because of Fort Sill, which is where he was stationed. And we didn't move a lot because we traveled the country. We moved because my dad, now as an adult, I know, chasing cheaper rent, trying to keep a roof over our heads. And my dad did work a lot of jobs, delivering pizzas, delivering the Oklahoma in rural Comanche County. He worked in convenience stores. He'd still be working today if he didn't have neuropathy in his legs. My dad is a worker bee, and of course served this country for 22 years. But Oklahoma's Promise was a program led by a Democratic state senator by the name of Maxine Horner, who wanted to ensure that children who are growing up in low-income families had access to higher learning. And when I was in high school, you start applying between 8th and 10th grade. So 15, what grade is your son?
She's 9th.
9th grade, so still have an opportunity. But the income limit was $50,000. And now, granted, that was, late 90s, early 2000s, but still, I'm like, my dad was raising 2 girls on $50,000. But that allowed me to go to college at the University of Central Oklahoma, and then I went on to the University of Nebraska. So I'm the first in my family to get a graduate degree as well. And I highlight all of that because I want people to know and see and understand how we can transform people's lives with public education, access to higher education, and we make these investments. It does go far. I'm grateful every day that Senator Horner thought of someone like me without thinking of me. And I did get a chance in 2018 to personally thank her before she passed away a couple years later. And it was at a higher education dinner. And so it was really, I was very fortunate to do that. But, and that has been the vision and the purpose of my life. And you heard that I work in the nonprofit sector. So I've always wanted to improve people's lives, especially those that have challenges. You mentioned working with folks who are incarcerated. I've worked with many mothers who are incarcerated, reconnecting them to their daughters. And then just my philosophy in terms of my public service and why I chose to run for governor. We have had governors who are not making decisions that are wise in terms of investments and how we improve everyday people's lives. But 16 years ago, because the question's going to come up, can a Democrat win? And 16 years ago, we had Brad Henry. When I was in high school, we were 17th in the nation for quality public education. We had a more balanced legislature, and having a balanced state government will do so much better. It will be better for all of us in Oklahoma. So I know I kind of took us away, but that that's who I am. That bio. Thank you. Who helped you?
Marion.
Marion, thank you. It shows. I think what I try to highlight is it's really my lived experience and then my professional life, and what I saw on the ground as a nonprofit professional is what shaped my perspective on the work I do.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously this crowd of people is interested in your stance on medical marijuana. And I even, a few months ago had made my post, and I'm like, Cyndi Munson, what you got to say to this? Y'all didn't see that.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the, I don't want to.
No, go right ahead.
I'm going to move this back. My knee, I keep hitting my knee. Okay, there we go. I want to keep my knees healthy. I was honestly pretty shocked and disappointed, very disappointed, but I was a little shocked that the governor came out in his State of the State saying that he wanted to undo the will of the people. Now, Republican lawmakers and those in power, they've made comments on a few things that they want to, they want to reject the will of the voter. They don't want to continue on, whether it's medical marijuana or Medicaid expansion. But this was, I was surprised. I didn't think that this was a stance he was going to take in his State of the State. And I came out pretty quickly. I think that evening where I did share my stance on protecting the will of the voter and protecting the medical marijuana program. I do feel strongly about that, as I have been in the legislature. There's, you know, and I know we'll have some discussion on legislation. There has been efforts through the legislative process even to undo the will of the people or make it more difficult. And I know we've had discussions here and even beyond today. I have been meeting with folks. Like I said, that summer, she came to my office to talk about testing, and really trying to listen to folks in terms of the challenges that people are facing in terms of propping up their business, but also being a patient and accessing medical marijuana. And so I know that, you know, there's a million posts that we make, so not everyone can find them. So I'm glad you tagged me. I'm glad you have me here so we can have a more clear conversation.
Yes.
But I know how much the medical marijuana program has really helped Oklahomans, both on the health aspect, but also I know for people's livelihoods in terms of businesses. I had an opportunity to attend the Cowboy Cup. Is that what it's called? Championship Cup in Stillwater a couple years ago. Yeah. And that's where I first started hearing stories of people who, like was shared tonight, giving over their life investments to start a new career. They left, so even many who said, I left a corporate job to go into this industry. And now, you know, we feel like we're at risk. And that was a few years ago. So
I think the community feels like they're being treated as criminals instead of business owners, operators, patients, representatives, advocates, things like that. So we'll get that changed though.
Yeah. Yes.
We will. Okay, so that tells us a little bit about your stance on medical marijuana. So obviously we're probably pretty glad to hear that, you know. In our study that we did, and I know this stuff has been emailed to you.
This new binder that I get to read. I'm excited.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I'm glad.
Okay. So no, that's actually just the expert report. That's not even the survey study stuff.
Okay.
There's more.
Okay.
Okay. In our survey study, so Dr. McNabb, myself, and Katie Nail and Stephanie Davis, the guys from Harvard Laboratories, and a few others, had done some, you know, research and work and put together a extensive survey that went out to the patient population as well as to the business owners. And in that study, 39% of the respondents said that they were willing to switch their voting political party based on a governor's stance to medical marijuana in Oklahoma. So when we are a primarily red state already, and you have 40% of that, you know, pool that says that they would be willing to change that, how does that make you feel as a candidate?
Well, what it tells me is it sends a message to all of us who are running for office, whether it's governor or other positions in state government, how important it is to protect the medical marijuana program. And, you know, and again, I what I hear more than anything is protecting business. And like you said, those who have legal businesses should be treated as such. But also, and what I really admire from everybody is making sure that patients have safe access to the medication that they need. And it is a consumer protection issue as well. So, again, it just tells me how important. I think any candidate who's running for office should be clear on where they stand and not flip-flop based on where people are going to vote for them. I'm glad to hear this. I have already stated my stance, and I have a record showing that I have voted against legislation that has tried to dismantle the industry and the program. And also I have challenged and asked questions. I've also, you know, when you look at our budget, because I know we've had some discussions around OMMA or the agency itself, but this is also why we have to reprioritize our tax dollars, which is a lot of what I talk about in this campaign, that we have tax money. We can, you know, make sure that we're providing the resources that our agencies need. And I know they need to follow the statutes, they need to follow the laws and provide transparency and accountability. Yes. But if we're going to have agencies to do the right thing, if they're supposed to be serving Oklahomans, we also have to resource them. So, and I have a record on that. But what that data tells me is that medical marijuana, protecting the medical marijuana program is important to voters across the state, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of where they live.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm not surprised by that either, because I have heard from people. I actually talked to Oklahomans. Like,
I know, I've watched
some
you on the
candidates.
trail.
Yeah.
Like, she is out there getting it like almost every day, literally.
Yeah. Yes. So. And what I was going to mention earlier too, and we had this conversation before I came up here, is that what is happening in Oklahoma, and I think in politics in general, is that there is rhetoric that's pushed out there. So like right now, where you're saying feeling like you're a criminal or being treated like a criminal, and what you're seeing on TV right now are ads that make you feel that way, and it doesn't even allow us to have constructive conversations, like you said, on where there needs to be changes, and we need to work towards solutions, and we need to work towards that versus but they've been doing this, the party in power has been doing this with education, reproductive health care. I mean, anything that really matters to Oklahomans, and it keeps us divided on these issues instead of working together.
Right. And that bipartisan effort is what is necessary to fix the problems. I mean, it really is, because both parties have, good points and good, sides to them each. And if we could take the good from both, and we could be an amazing state.
Absolutely.
So
we were there at one point.
Yeah, we were. So, one of the things that we've talked about here is, business owners and things like that. And yes, as a patient, it matters to me, that this program is safe. But I think it's honestly more important to our business owners and things like that, because they're the ones who provide our medicine to us. And without them, we don't get it,
right.
So what is your plan to ensure our program stays safe in the future?
Well, I think first listening. So just hearing experiences of what's going on at the county level, challenges even with the agency in terms of, making sure that paperwork is filed and they're following the statutes. And if you're doing the right thing, they should be doing the right thing as well.
Yes.
And so it sounds like for me, digging in more of where the discrepancies are and where there isn't transparency and oversight, and being better about that. But I think, I tell people this all the time on a lot of issues that we talk about, is that the answers aren't that sophisticated. I think just having a normal, common sense, open-minded perspective on things goes a really long way.
Shocker, y'all.
So let's start there.
Shocker.
But those who are in the industry, listening to those who are in the industry, and understanding better what the challenges are, because I'm sure there are differences in rural Oklahoma and urban Oklahoma, and
there are.
And I think, having a leader who understands this and destigmatizing the medical marijuana program and access to medical marijuana in general is a good place to start. But I would really want to listen to experts and put those folks in positions, or even if there aren't positions, having an advisory group to help me understand, what are the challenges and how we can fix this. And those who are
that was music to my ears.
Those who are doing criminal activity, or they are illegal operators, and yes, they have to be held accountable. But you shouldn't all be lumped together. And you're right, if the businesses aren't functioning and if they can't provide the service, then you're not going to get access to the medication.
100%. So speaking of businesses, currently we have a moratorium.
Yes.
Since 2001 or 2001,
probably 2021. 21.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute, man. Excuse me. Since 2021, cultivation licenses have gone from 9,000 down to 2,000, with ongoing enforcement by the AG's Marijuana Task Force, by OMA, by OBN, by multiple different agencies. There's been a moratorium on new licensure for a few years now, and a bill was up this year to end the moratorium. The market's kind of stabilizing now with the stronger businesses left in some aspects. How do you feel about the moratorium? Because I believe they recently extended it to 2028, correct? Okay, so for a small business owner, and I'm going to use my old man for an example, okay? He used to have a dispo. And at one point, the goal was to expand that business and open up a second and a third and a fourth, but that was around the same time the moratorium implemented, okay? Other things happened that didn't work out. But had that worked out and he wanted to expand his business, why are we restricted from doing so when there isn't a restriction on CVS, Walgreens, or religious, locations all up and down Main Street on every small town in America, that type of thing? Like none of that is restricted, but yet we are. Is that something that you would be willing to end as governor?
Yes, and I have actually voted against all the moratorium legislation, and that's my exact argument. I remember having in committee, my question was, what other industry do we do this to?
Yeah.
And there's never an answer. And I think, and this is where, again, hearing experiences in terms of, I can appreciate and understand being overwhelmed, and once 788 was passed and you're trying to prop up the medical marijuana program, that, you know, we have to work through all these things and we need some balance, you know.
Right.
Okay, I can appreciate that. But also, what systems do we need to put in place? What processes do we need to put in place to ensure that we can get people who are trying to get their license, whether it's for business, individual, and work through the process while also, this is why resourcing is really important, because you do need human beings working in agencies to be more efficient. Cutting is not efficiency. And making sure that, you know, if there is illegal activity or someone, if there is something that is going against doing the right thing, then we need to catch that. But I don't think putting a moratorium, and what is being shown, and I wrote the bill numbers down so I wouldn't forget, because I think I want to say maybe Oregon, I want to say a coastal state, there were moratoriums put in place, and then they haven't been lifted since. And we talked about that too while this legislation was moving through the process, that, you know, there's no guarantee, and one of them has an extension for a moratorium. So there's no end in sight. And again, what other industry do we do this to? And if we look at just the economic value of what the medical marijuana program brings, like you were mentioning in rural Oklahoma, you know, we do have to diversify industry in Oklahoma. And if this is a place where Oklahomans want to put their investments and their time and their energy and their name on their business, and this is a way for them to make a living and provide more opportunities, especially in rural Oklahoma, then we need to figure out a way to support that.
One thing that we have seen in our community is selective enforcement. Okay. And I'm going to be very frank with how I say this. Okay. Selective enforcement meaning that we have the narrative of the illegal Chinese grows. Okay. What we don't get the truth of is the rich white man who has signed a lease as a, you know, property owner to allow that to happen, for one, but also for companies like Grace Farms and Alien House Extracts, who between the two of those companies were over 1 million units of product that went into our market. Consumers consumed those products, the entire batches, because OMA did not catch anything for 2 years and backtracked 2 years to, hey, by the way, got a problem, right? So when we have those bad actors that are Caucasian instead of being Asian, why are we not having, and I know you can't answer it personally, but why are we not having those people held accountable as well? These are criminal actions. Willful poisoning is a crime, and that is something that I feel like that if we have operators in our community that are doing that intentionally, negating a rule, a regulation that allows for that bad acting to give a very horrible performance, that needs to be accountable. Is that something you would be willing to do?
Yeah, and in fact, you know, there's always a lot of conversation. So, you know, I've been in the legislature for 11 years. I've always been opposed in my district. So I've spent a lot of years out knocking doors and talking to people. And so I've had conversations on the doorstep about this in my district, and people will bring up that exact issue. And I explain to them it's unconstitutional for a foreign entity or individual to own land in Oklahoma. So if they are owning land, exactly to your point, someone is figuring out a way to work through the system in order to sell land to make money. And that is really where we need to be focused on addressing and making that, we need to be more holding them more accountable and addressing that in terms of laws and things like that. And as an Asian American woman, I'm going to be very honest, it's very frustrating, the rhetoric that I hear. It's Asian American History Month. We're getting towards, you know, we're ending May. Yes. And a gubernatorial candidate had some pretty racial language that was offensive to me. I was getting ready in my bathroom and my TV's on, and I heard, I'm not going to repeat it because it's really hurtful. And I'm just so disappointed. But again, you know, if there are bad actors, then yes, we need to help hold people accountable. But using race and using these things to, again, continue to divide people, create fear, is not productive.
And it's not a equal punishment to the crime. when you will allow some people to get away with things and not others. And I'm personally offended that people like the owner of Grace Farms has gotten away with what he's done. You know, he's moved on with his best life and left to another state now, you know, and Oklahoma allowed him safe passage. I'm sorry, OMA allowed him safe passage, you know, fined him $133 million, but there was nothing criminally wrong there, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
So well, I'll get off that soapbox. Sorry.
I don't have, and you all may have more stories, but what my assumption is, just because agriculture, it's so difficult to, you know, continue, especially as a small farmer or family farmer, rancher, and you don't have your, you know, historically you have third generation, fourth generation, fifth generations running their farms, and they have to figure out how to make a living off of their land. Yeah. And I'm sure that there are people who are utilizing their land, doing it legally, that are also being mistreated. This is also a conversation we have with renewable energy and other ways that we try to control how people use their land. When I thought we lived in a state that protected private property rights, and we're advocates of that, and I think that again, I don't have a personal story, so you all may, I see head shaking, so I think I'm on the right track. But addressing that issue as well. And I know people are, especially again, you know, in every corner of the state, but especially in rural Oklahoma, the economic opportunities are just so few because, and we can talk more about this, education and healthcare. We don't do the things that actually take care of people. And so they move to places, whether it's in the metro area or if they have a capacity, they leave.
Or closer to.
So all of these things are interconnected.
They are interconnected. So the current director of the OMA is Director Ada Riveri, and there is a mixed consensus amongst the community. Some that believe that she's doing a great job, and some that don't. Sorry, guys. I wear my face on my face. So I would ask you, would you be appointing someone new as the director of the OMA, or would you retain the current director in the position she's in?
Well, I'd have to give a wide range view of what's going on, but I will say where my head is and any appointment that I get to make, which as you all know, but those who are listening and watching, the governor has a lot of appointment power. The Republicans have given the governor a lot of power, and this matters in terms of how our agencies are run. You all know this. So first, we're going to start with competence. That's really important to me. And I think in this particular industry and the medical marijuana program, having someone that's not adversarial, but really wanting to work together and work towards solutions and listening to those on the ground, again, who are in the industry in terms of the business side, and also listening to patients. But I think, again, that all starts with a governor who has an open mind, who's solution focused and not looking for ways to fight with the industry. And I've heard concerns already as I was walking in about following statute, making sure people are treated fairly, that there's good oversight, accountability, transparency, and that will all be a priority. And look, in state government right now, which is why I think this election is so important, and having a person who doesn't have deeply tied connections with, and I'm not saying this about the current director, I'm saying across the board with state government, where we're just helping our friends and scratching each other's back and helping our buddies out. These positions will be filled by people who actually know what they're doing and are serving Oklahomans, and that's their first priority.
Good job, guys. All right, so moving right along, we're just like, taking the train and getting out on the train cars. So, recreational marijuana, State Question 837, was a petition initiative that was ran last year, and unfortunately it did not do it. Out of this house, actually. It was. Thank you, Moto. Paseo Pad, by the way, shout out. Y'all need to check it out. So, State Question 837 did not go through. So we didn't get enough signatures for the petition to move on. However, if a recreational marijuana petition or bill was to make it to your desk as governor, would you go ahead and sign it?
I did support the State Question. I signed the petition. I am curious to hear what you all think, because I didn't hear a lot of debrief on why we felt like the the signatures. I think there are theories out there, but I'd like to hear those of you on the ground what happened. But yeah, if a bill came to my desk and there's bipartisan support, which is what it would take to make marijuana recreational, I would support it. I think that, right now people, and I think there's a question about incarceration and how that's impacting people's lives and their families. People need to have access in this situation, the medication that they need, but if there's a way to regulate and make sure that we can, so we can eliminate the black market, that's something that's talked about a lot.
It is.
But regulation, taxation, all of that would help, I think, solve a lot of issues that all of us are talking about in this race right now.
Well, speaking of some incarceration stuff, that just rolls right into the next one, right? So, nonviolent cannabis offenders. We've had where they've reduced some things, made things misdemeanors, and other things like that. However, with the nonviolent, would you sign an executive order, basically order releasing nonviolent low-level cannabis offenders if that's their only charge?
I was gonna say I would need to look at everything, right? I can't. I don't want to make
a promise.
Yes, that's important to me to keep my word. But you heard in my bio and just the work that I've done in the legislature, making sure that people are not incarcerated for things that are now legal. Is the right thing to do to get them out of incarceration and back in their communities and with their families. I also think the other side of that is ensuring that people have a second chance. They need to be able to have access to housing and employment and healthcare. And I've been working on those issues for a long time. I supported 780 and 781 myself, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but my members of my caucus, Democrats in the House, have worked to make sure that money is actually going to rehabilitative services, behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, which is where the money was supposed to go. So I think there's a bigger issue around criminal justice reform that we still need to get right. But if this is the only thing that is keeping somebody behind bars and not in their communities, not with their families, not being able to live in a free society, then yes.
Okay, good answer. Thank you. So this one is about legislative reform and accountability. And this one's Charlie's. Would you be willing to hold a special session requiring legislators to be held accountable and for them to write responsible cannabis legislation reforming the program, not dismantling it, to improve patient safety and allow businesses to thrive?
Yeah, I saw that question, and I wonder who asked that. Charlie. Okay. Are you saying special session so that we're only focused on that issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've gotten away with not properly regulating marijuana and to assure the urgency of it, make them sit there until they get done.
Yeah.
We've even seen the legislature actually kind of, I'm not going to mention the name of the person that instigated the problems because, no clout given. But there was about 2 weeks, was it last year, Anthony, or the year before, where it was the year before in 2024. So where they decided they weren't going to discuss medical marijuana at all for 2 weeks. Like they literally pouted on the floor that they weren't going to take phone calls. They weren't going to have conversations. They had been threatened. They had this, they had that, type of a thing. It was a punishment to the community. And to me, as my legislators, first off, we put you in that seat, how dare you? That's like you're acting like a kindergartner. Can I go put you in the corner? Is how I felt about it. So that would be one of the reasons why that question came in as well, is to see, we want it to thrive.
Yeah. I would be careful to say special session just because it costs us extra money, but what we would need to do is work with a coalition of bipartisan legislators and have a package of bills and make that a priority, and I would do that. But a special session, that becomes a little tricky. So that's why I asked why a special session. But I think what needs to be done is there needs to be a package of legislation that addresses, I'm assuming what would come, I don't know if it's this, but the report that I will read over, if there are solutions and things that we can work on, and if we can get folks on both sides of the aisle, which this is something that no gubernatorial candidate has experience in, working with both sides and getting things done. And so I think that there are plenty of people in the legislature, there are certainly plenty who are not, who want to get it right, who have constituents who are business owners, and who themselves, I think personally know that there are people who have benefited from access to medical marijuana. So I'd be careful to say special session, but working on, all of these other aspects. And it sounds like what you're meaning is getting really focused and honing in on the challenges that we need to solve. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you briefly mentioned earlier about when we had met for the first time and it being about patient safety and patient testing, independent testing. So speaking of legislation, wrapping it all into one there, House Bill 3013 was a pesticide expansion bill that myself, Havard, and a bunch of others in here all worked on together. Jeremy back there. Who else? Raise your hand if you helped with it. Okay, Austin. Yep, Austin was one. So, point being though, is that OLMA had actually tried to put it into proposed permanent rules. I think it was the year before Lee Rhodes, the chief science guy, before he retired. Huh? Yeah, in an emergency session. So Senator Bergstrom struck it down, and come to find out it was because it was kind of missing some stuff. And so we as a community decided to pick it up the next year and try to run it fully on our own. And it did not go through. It actually didn't even make it to committee, which was extremely disappointing for us. Yeah. The state of Oklahoma is currently only testing for 13 different pesticides. And my obvious concerns there is that I feel like we're doing the bare bone minimum. And so my next question would obviously be about, would you require the legislatures to put in a plan in place to increase the number of pesticides that we test for to better improve patient and consumer safety?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And this is really disappointing to me. I'm not too surprised that the bill didn't go through, partly because of, again, the message that the governor sent this legislative session. And I know that Representative Rosecrans, I believe, worked on that bill. Is he your representative? Okay.
Well, no, he's not actually mine. Okay. John Kane is mine.
Oh, you're in Bartles?
Skytech.
Or Skytech? Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. For some reason, I was thinking Norman as we started talking. But yeah, again, this goes back to patient safety, consumer protections. I appreciate your passion and that you found legislators, it sounds like, on both sides of the aisle to move it forward. But yeah, we need to get that right because we want to make sure that Oklahomans who are accessing medical marijuana, that it is safe.
Yes.
And those pests, how many did you say we currently
only test for 13, and like California and Colorado test for anywhere from 66 to 106. And I even had a lab, OKCTL Labs. I had tested some stuff with them originally, and their manager at one point had seen something kind of spike on there that he couldn't tell us what it was because it wasn't an analyte they test for on the regular, and said, hey, if you want to have this further tested, you're going to have to take it out of state for a further analysis, and recommended that we, take the Oklahoma products out of state for testing. And so my attorney actually did that, not me. I was there, but I was not the carrier. But anyway, email me, right? No, not. So a long story short there, though, is we did take the products out there. We had a pre-roll. Stephanie quit it. Damn it.
What happened?
She's laughing at me.
I'm like, I missed it. It's yeah. That's right.
We took the products out there, and there was 33 samples that were taken. The testing lab selected 5 of them randomly, and one of them, one individual pre-roll, a 1 gram product, fell for 19 different pesticides.
Oh my goodness.
And that was like one of the things I was consuming all the time. Yeah. No wonder I had the problems I had.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that's why it is such a a drive for me.
I think someone's camera's done.
Oh, I'm like, huh? I didn't do it. That's where the drive comes from for me on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is because we are doing the bare bone minimum, and also one of the things that currently the OMA is not doing, but I guess they're kind of learning how, based off their recent administrative actions, is how to look for chemicals that are being used that are not authorized chemicals. Because if they're using things that are not authorized, how are we even going to know test for that, right? So they should only be following that Department of Ag's approved pesticide list for hemp/cannabis sativa marijuana. So yeah, there's that one. I get on the little soapbox.
And if that bill had gone through, I would have, of course, supported the legislation.
I need it to go through. We need it to go through.
You just have to keep working.
I don't want to work at it for 4 years like they did with pre-pack on TJ Marty trying to get it through there. So I'm like, this is a patient safety thing,
right.
This shouldn't take that much to get through. Yeah, exactly. All right, so OMA transparency. Moving right along. They're all gonna laugh. I love this. All right, so government transparency in the OMA, or more so, the lack of it, including the secret shopper program, which was wrote by Representative Ty Burns. And at about, I want to say 6 months in, I believe he asked the OMA for like a report, on what their findings and stuff. And they told him that they weren't going to answer that for at least 1 year of the program being running, because I guess they wanted to see how it worked and went and stuff before they reported back to the legislator on it. So the secret shopper program, we still do not know. I've asked in the executive advisory council meetings, public comment periods, others have as well. How are they doing the secret shopper testing? How many products are they testing? What labs are they using to test at? Those types of questions. And it is chirp, chirp, cricket, crickets. And we do not get those answers out of them. So when we talk about the transparency over there, that's one of those issues. One of the other issues is that in August of 2025, we got started being restricted when we would go into the OMMA's administrative court proceedings. Anthony, right there sitting in front of you, has been doing exactly what he's doing behind that camera for about 6 years now. He has 6 years of documented video footage of being in that courtroom and documenting history as it happens, basically, okay? So August, she starts restricting our access, telling us we can't audio and video record in there, we can't anything of that nature. But it looks like she actually filed her executive order April 4th. You can have that copy too, by the way. And then didn't choose to start implementing it until August of 2025. And then whenever we were still bringing our cell phones in, we got another executive order signed on September 17th. It's obvious that she has the capability and the power to sign the executive order to restrict our access to video and audio record in the administrative court proceedings in her courtroom, not Judge Dewey's. My question there would be, would you actually pull that back and allow people to video and audio record? We have cases now where there are parties involved that have actually requested access privately through OMA to ask that their cases be allowed to be recorded. And they're even being told no. Director Berry's response to that, the Executive Advisory Council meeting, was that every one of them has a court transcript. My rebuttal to that is, I have sat in that courtroom and watched the judge click it on, talk about the case, click it off. Click it on, talk about the next case, click it off. That is not a accurate representation, I guess, of what's going on in that courtroom. And we need to fix that in government transparency side of it.
Yeah. Are any of those, I'm assuming, live streamed, or were they, or
over the last 6 years? Oh yeah, there's been some that were live streamed and stuff.
But by the agency?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they don't live stream anything.
With the tape recorder, and those can be requested via the open records request. However, in history of OMMA, their responsiveness to submitted open records requests has been delay in completion. I requested one inspection report of an open administrative case one time, and it took them 354 days to respond with one inspection report, which they, as you know, the law says that you have to turn it over as soon as you have access to it. And so, this report was generated the same day of the inspection. So they delayed it by 354 days because my assumption is because it was an open administrative case and needed it for the respondent's defense in their court case. But that's typical. In fact, I have one that it took over 90 days, and it was a total of 6 requests, and I got half of one back. And that's it. And then the only recourse is to file a district court petition. in order to get them to compel the agency to turn over the records. But then again, that then you have a minimum of $5,000 retainer for an attorney, plus the filing fees, plus the appearances, and also
for something that they should be providing.
The Oklahoma County District Courts are very much so busy,
right,
and don't have open documents.
Yep.
That's true.
And did that start happening after the orders were placed, like the open records and the delay?
Oh no, that's been an issue all along.
That's been typical practice. OMA legal is who's in charge of dispensing and responding to all of the open records requests, and they have one person, a paralegal, who, when I worked at OMA, I never saw her work a full 40-hour week. So I'm not sure if she has started working more or less, but there's one person, and if you bring up these issues, they fall upon deaf ears.
Yeah. Okay.
But I know his name.
Yeah. Making sure that there's transparency and fairness, and that is important. And yes,
and accountability.
Yes. And we do have to fix. Again, I know you all are talking about OMA, but across the board, the open record situation has been a very big challenge and problem across all agencies and government offices at the state level that we have been trying. I will say we have been trying to fix through the legislative process, but we really need to improve, get it right, because people do have access. Your taxpayers, your Oklahomans, this is your taxpayer dollars at work, and so you need to know what's going on.
Absolutely. So the other part of transparency is this. As of, I want to say it was January 23rd of 2026, is the last time that any patient received email notifications from the agency in regards to recalled products. So currently the agency, in their rules and regulations, says that fault to responsibility to notify the patient is actually the dispensary's responsibility. There's a problem with that. We have dispensaries, one, that have been shut down, who have no contact, no communication. Most of the time, patients do not like to provide their phone number, their address, things like that. They want their information private. They don't want to give that, The icing on the cake here is that the regulatory agency has access to every bit of that whenever you apply for your patient card, your business license, credentials, all of those things, okay? So we know that they have a little magic button that whenever they push it, it sends out a mass email to all of the patients because it used to work, right? Agency went through some staffing changes recently, and there were some key critical people that are no longer with the agency that a lot of us do feel and believe that maybe that's why some of this has changed. They are currently now, instead of issuing out that email to a patient, they are expecting you as a patient to check their website daily and look for recalls. And look for administrative actions. And because they publish it on their website, they consider that to be notice. We need to fix that again. The patients are not being made aware. The dispensaries that are open that do have products that have been on recall lists, majority are not calling the patients. And I don't even think some of them actually understand that by law, technicality right now, it's their responsibility. I know we've got a couple of dispensary owners in the audience that have, she has told me that yes, she does that, and I'm like, man, okay, I've shopped at the wrong one, then I need to go to her, because she'll call me if there's a problem with the product. So they need to streamline the recall processes. They are not doing them effectively. They are not doing them to their entirety, and they are putting the patient's health at risk. Most recently, we had a recall for Sunny Roads. It's a processing facility, and that recall was done back in March, but yet 3 months later now, almost, guys, when we got the second notice, okay, and there was an additional, product list that came out. What is it that agency is doing that they cannot get this all figured out in their initial investigation to where they're allowing those products to stay on those shelves, be sold through and consumed, and then, oh yeah, oops, sorry, those were bad too. Those are some of the things that we need to address.
Yeah. Now, help me understand, when there's a product or is recalled, that does the dispensary have to notify the OMMA? What's the process? I know what you're saying in terms of they're saying they want them to contact the patients, but how does OMMA get the information?
How OMMA gets the information is the laboratory who tests the product. It's their responsibility to notify the agency if there are failed testings.
Okay.
And I may actually resource an outline over here.
He's right over here.
Yes. But well,
Let's
Jeremy,
tell them from the beginning. So
come up this way, Jeremy. You ain't got to get behind camera or nothing, but just come over here where we can hear you better.
Your state authority, the way you do their own rules and regulations, they're supposed to put it, when they start their embargo process, they're supposed to put it on emergency hold. That flags it in metric. That stops a dispensary, that the metric goes to the POS system. That way a bud tender, which I know, Hannah, you're a dispensary owner, the bud tenders don't always go back and look at metric. They run off that POS system. So when they're supposed to put that in emergency hold, that locks it up in the POS system. So when the dispensary scans it, that bud tender sees a red X. That means they're not selling. But instead, they don't do that. So they're supposed to put it on emergency hold for the start of the embargo process. Once they have their court hearing, have it tested, make sure it fails. If it fails, then it goes through a recall process. They have the court hearing. The ALJ will say, yes, you've got the evidence. You tested it at 3 different labs. They all concur that it has failed. Now it has to go to a recall process. Or if it passes the test, then they release the emergency hold and let the product be sold. Now, another step in that is if the labs test it, one lab tests it and tests good, the other two fail, then it's supposed to go to the state lab or the QA lab, which we still don't have, which that'll be a question I'll ask you in a little bit. But that way the state lab can test it to see what the actual determination is. We don't do that.
And I do believe, like, when
I
you
can show you testing that has made it in metric 7 months from the day it was tested to the day when we put out a recall. State statute says immediately.
And lab guys, answer me this riddle real quick. If you are doing an R&D test, if you have an R&D that fails for a category, does that get reported to the agency, or is the R&D the proprietary knowledge of the owner?
No, so the R&D testing is also transferred to metric. So once the test result is uploaded, if it fails in R&D, it flags it. It's supposed to flag it still and make them aware. This batch has problems. Because it is an R&D test, I believe they can still go through and try to do a full panel, but if you do a full panel compliance test, it doesn't really make much of a difference. It can be a failure in the end.
One of the things that we've seen out in the market in my consumer safety and why Patients for Safe Access became what it was is because what we are seeing is that producers, growers, and manufacturers are taking product to the lab themselves to submit for testing, which is fine when you have honest, transparent people, you know, who aren't doing the nefarious acts. But whenever you have someone doing a nefarious act, maybe they take to a lab something that they know will pass a test, and then they put some boo-boo behind that. An example would be pre-roll category. One passing test allows a producer to put out a batch of 4,000 of that one. And our batch representation sample size is what, 7 grams, guys? On pre-rolls?
Minimum of 5 grams.
Minimum 5 grams. So when you're looking at percentage of sampling to what is going out into the market, and with them cherry picking samples, and not everybody, just our bad actor nefarious guys, you know, and that's a way that they're negating those things and how we've ended up with products in the market that are bad.
We need to fix that. And I do think it is on OMA to tell the licensees, you know. One thing I was going to mention when you talked about bud tenders, and I don't know how I forgot because it's my legislation, but didn't get through the process. I did have legislation to license bud tenders and provide training to legitimize even more that is, and because of some of the things that I've heard too, that to your point, what you were saying, you know, they're they're working, you know, they need, and I'm not, and as a dispensary owner, I'm sure you do training and all that. So I'm not, but also to have some licensing there, I think, I don't want to make it more difficult for people to find jobs, but I think having an occupational license also legitimizes the business, the industry, and has that bud tender, paying more attention to the patient safety and access, patient safety and consumer protection aspect. But it didn't move through the process. I tried so hard for a couple of years.
What were y'all thinking not moving that through?
Well, hopefully we can next year.
There's also an opportunity in rural Oklahoma and places like, this is just the first place that comes off the top of my head, but Seminole State College. We need to be having, a marijuana education system there, right? Like we need to be teaching the endocannabinoid system in nursing school at these colleges, and have, best practices, because in cannabis, it's not just OMMA and OBN rules and regulations. There's also federal definitions that come into play on packaging and labeling and things of that nature. And so it's so much more than a bud tender. It's just a cashier at a dispensary.
Right. Correct.
And so
exactly
when we can, as you say, further legitimize things by having the employee credentials and holding those employees responsible for underage sales or over product sales and things of that nature, we can also go forward and expand that education. And as you said, bring opportunities to the rural area of Oklahoma. And Katie
has more to add.
Talk about the cannabinoid system in the nursing program, which she's much smarter about it.
We don't have time for that right now. But with having the largest medical program in the United States, we have the ability to lead the nation with regulations, bringing more research, education, that'll bring more jobs. Like, it's a medicine and should be treated as a medicine. And the FDA didn't do an appropriate recall, there would be a lot of
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, a couple of people have mentioned the OMMA's QA lab, and that one really burns my bottom end because we have already spent $10 million with Metis, who is a lab in the state of Oklahoma. Yeah, Jeremy?
I do have a question.
Okay.
You brought the lab and you brought the budget. The state budget.
Yes.
So in 2022, legislation passed.
Yes.
$3.5 million for them to buy the equipment.
Right.
$1.4 million annually for their personnel and their supplies. We don't have a state lab.
Yeah.
So they spent the 3.5 on equipment. I'm sure of that. But we've been paying that money out of tax budget.
Right.
To the $1.4 million for their supplies and their labor.
Yeah.
Is that not fraud? We
Well,
don't have a lab.
I think what we should end that rounding it out with is, wouldn't it be a great idea to invite State Auditor Cyndi Munson to audit the OMMA's financials?
Yeah, well, and with audits, it's financials, but also processes and why things aren't moving forward. Because and she, she could be the treasurer here soon. So whoever the auditor is, or the auditor's office is responsible to making sure that our tax dollars are being utilized properly. And I'm going to look into that a little bit more myself. I see the little comments popping up. So when I look, and I'm sorry that I'm itching my leg. I think I got a mosquito bite. I'm sorry.
That was in a news article from Lee Rhodes.
Oh.
Talking about your guys' legislation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I saw a comment in it popped up about that too. So I'll check into that now. I can do that now as the city representative.
The second lab, and now there's $20 million for 2 labs that are not functional.
Yeah. And a remodel in the Oklahoma Tax Commission building. Okay, that's enough. That's okay.
All good.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna give Cyndi Bird some, things to look into, let's just give it all to her, right?
Yeah. I'm sure she'll love that. Yeah.
I'm so sorry for the coughing, guys. Okay.
All good.
All right, we're gonna roll into another subject. We have asked a lot of questions about medical marijuana, and here in a few after we're closing, we'll ask some more. But this one I want to ask about, of course, our youth and education. So obviously we've got a massive concern in our state, with our state being 50th in education currently under Governor Kevin Stitt's administration. And how can we improve that and do it in a quick manner? How would you improve it and improve it quickly as governor of Oklahoma?
Yeah, we are 50th in public education because of lack of financial investment in our schools. That's what that ranking is representing. So it's two things. One, we're about $2 billion behind regionally for per pupil spending, meaning there are states around us that are spending more money or investing more money in their students to get the resources that they need. We are still at the bottom, near the bottom for starting teacher pay and teacher pay regionally. So even with the teacher pay raises that have been enacted, we're still not competitive with surrounding states. But we're also not competitive with surrounding industry within the state. So a lot of times when people think about teachers leaving the classroom, they're thinking they're going to Texas. But many times they're just going across the street doing something different, and they're leaving teaching altogether. And then we have put in some good programs that I have supported to increase the teacher pipeline to get more young people to want to be teachers. But it's still not enough because of the funding crisis that we face, but also just the attacks on public education that we've seen by leaders. Yes.
I got a question.
Okay, hold on. And then also support staff. So we are not doing a good job of keeping support staff in our school buildings, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, paraprofessionals. There's a woman I met, she worked 20 years in Chandler Public Schools, and now she's a cashier at Love's on the new stop on the turnpike coming back to Oklahoma City. And I say this everywhere I go, all work is dignified, but she was a very important piece to that public school system. But she left because she makes $2 more an hour as a cashier and can manage her schedule better and has less, in many ways, stress that we have placed on our public schools. And so this is about financial investment, and we've putting nearly $300 million into private school vouchers. Public dollars should stay in public schools.
Yes.
There was a report highlighting this private school voucher program that showed that 92% of families that are receiving the voucher are already sending their kids to private schools. We've also seen some private schools increase their tuition, and of course the governor prioritized this year to increase putting more money towards the voucher. So this is a place that, as governor, I do believe, as a Democratic governor, and the reality is there'll still be a majority of Republican legislators. I hope we break the supermajority. I do hope we bring more balance. I think that will happen in this election cycle. But I think this is a place where both parties can work together. And I know that because I know that rural Republicans who represent rural areas that don't have a single private school in their district or in their community, in their county, want those dollars to stay in their school district. And they know how important it is. You know, what I hear from teachers too is we need smaller class, we need more manageable classroom sizes. What I hear from teachers, but more so from students, is we need more counselors. There are many school districts that have one counselor or one nurse serving the entire district versus having them in the school building. I think back on when I was in high school in 2004, which is now 22 years ago, but I had a behavioral counselor, I had an academic counselor, and when I was a senior, I had a senior counselor who helped me apply for scholarships. And so it was like all these resources. Until I started running for office, I didn't realize how many school districts don't have advanced placement courses because that takes more funding, and you need teachers who can teach those courses. I took that for granted when I was in high school. I thought every high school has all of these programs, all of these resources, and then you become an adult and you're in the real world. But we are where we are because Republicans have, for many years, implemented income tax cuts. That's why I do not understand why we're continuing to talk about this, because we've already lived through what that looks like. When I joined the legislature, or I was elected to the legislature, I didn't just join, I had to get elected in 2015. We were facing a $1.5 billion budget deficit, so there are massive cuts to education, human services, healthcare, and of course triggered the teacher walkout in 2018. And we still really didn't do enough. And then of course you had Ryan Walters, who the governor appointed as Secretary of Education, then got elected as state superintendent, who would just continue to attack our public teachers, our students, and not using I mean, like I was saying with agencies, not utilizing the agency is supposed to support the districts and support our teachers, and that was not happening. So this is the one area I really do feel like day one we can get to work. Both parties can get to work and get this done. And it's, again, I'm gonna keep repeating myself on this. It is all about reprioritizing our tax dollars. I see it, and I'm sure there'll be comments here. She's a Democrat. All she wants to do is raise taxes. That's not true. We have revenue that comes into the state this year alone in 2026. $500 million in our state budget went to private school vouchers, $275 million, $12.5 million to Dream Trump accounts. Those at the federal level. Well, apparently we're investing $250 per child in a certain age range. But we don't know what those accounts will look like. We don't know if there's going to be money once that child turns 18, and then $200 million in a sovereign wealth fund, which sounds good as a savings account and could be good if we were overflowing with revenue. We weren't in a crisis in every area of state government that helps the quality of life for everyday people across the state. We don't have that. So now that money is going to be siphoned away. That's $200 million we could have put towards education. We could have put towards healthcare. We could put towards roads, law enforcement, you name it, the things that we care about. And so it's about making sure that our tax dollars are going and helping a majority of Oklahomans, and not the wealthiest, not corporations, not big business, but everyday people. So that's really important to me, and how we fix education.
All right, we are wrapping up, but we're going to run through these last few a little bit quicker. So bullying in our schools is a big deal. I've raised multiple children that have been impacted by bullying in schools themselves. And one of the things that I guess I see that we should change is how to make character counts in our students. So example being athlete teams. Okay, if you've got a football team who is, the players are picking on someone, they should be removed from that team. You know what I'm saying? They should, in my opinion, we should be encouraging these groups of students to embrace, envelop, and just be okay with whoever is whoever. Quit bullying them. And if they do bully, be out of there. But if they represent and they have that good character counts, then we need to reward them for that as well, and accelerate things for them as well. So I think we need to do some different things with bullying for sure. Is there anything you would implement?
I think what I would just add, just going back to what I said about having, I think part of this too is having more adults to talk to, counselors, students having a place to go to. A child who is bullying another child's probably being bullied at home or somewhere else, right? So I'm not. I think that people have to be held accountable, and I think what you're saying in terms of like a football team or a leadership position, they have to learn responsibility and accountability even at that age, and make it appropriate for that situation. But teachers don't have enough support to be able to even watch out for those things. We hope that at home that there are conversations that are being had, but that may not always be the case. This is also why education is so tough in Oklahoma, because we put so much on teachers. But we need, and I have supported, there's been different legislation that's gone through in the last decade that I've been in around better training for counselors and teachers, and implementing some programs that would decrease bullying in our schools. I also think screens are a problem. Social media is a problem. I think there's a lot that's being formed in young people's minds, and we're getting away from being able to talk to each other as humans and connect on a one-on-one basis. And we've addressed some of that too with cell phone bans, which kids don't like. I got a big boo when I spoke to a group of high school boys on Monday night. I was like, I know, I'm sorry, but we were reading the research and it's not good for your brains. And I have an 8-year-old nephew who, can work an iPad and the iPhone like nobody's business when he was like 3. And so, just being careful about all that. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk family and social policies for a second as well. And we have some inquiring minds that would like to know, what is your policies in regards to the LGBTQ community going forward to ensure that their rights are protected as well?
All the years I've been in the legislature, I've stood up against every marginalized piece of legislation that continues to marginalize communities, especially the LGBTQ community. The most recent legislation that I was very vocal on was continuing to bar same-sex couples from adopting children, and using religion as a reason to do that. I got. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Got into a lot of heated arguments in committee and on the floor, and wrote a letter to the governor, but it didn't help, unfortunately. But any type of legislation that comes to my desk will be vetoed. Obviously, we can't promise that it wouldn't be overridden by a majority of, Republicans if they so chose that. But also, again, this is, being a person who shows that I value everybody, that to me, everyone is seen. And this has been my stance. This is personal. It's not politics for me. I think that we need to treat every human being and every Oklahoman with dignity and respect, and that they are valued and worthy and loved. And you will hear that. And sometimes a policy won't fix all that. We can work to undo things, but the reality is that might be difficult with just the makeup of what state government may look like in 2027. But making sure that you all know, and the LGBTQ community knows, and those who love the LGBTQ community who stands alongside them, is that I will veto legislation that is harmful.
It's harmful for them. Okay. All right. So women's rights.
Yes. Yeah. Again, very vocal. Have pushed back, and for over a decade now, I have pushed back on anti-abortion legislation, anything that restricts a woman's access to reproductive health care and autonomy over her body. This has had a huge impact. I tell people this all the time. You can be pro-life or pro-choice or whatever camp you want to live in, but the reality is that these laws, these extreme laws, the extreme abortion ban has harmed access to healthcare altogether in Oklahoma. We do not have doctors who want to practice here. They're too afraid because of criminalization, having their licenses revoked. I talked to a group of young people who are in their residencies who are to be OBGYNs. I ask them every year, do you plan to stay in Oklahoma? And they all say no. Maybe one, maybe two, but for the majority, they want to leave the state. They care deeply about women's health care. They want to make sure women have access to health care, but they don't feel safe practicing in Oklahoma. We know the statistics that over 52% of Oklahoma's counties are maternity health care deserts, where women have nowhere to go, even if they are trying to have a pregnancy. I'm hearing awful stories from women who are in the IVF process, the amount of money they've spent, the emotional, psychological toll, physical toll it's taken on them. We lost one of the best IVF doctors in the country, who is my constituent, because of these laws. And so again, it'll be a tough path to navigate to undo. But one thing for sure is that I know that there are groups out there, Oklahomans on both sides of the aisle, who are working to put a state question to protect reproductive health care in Oklahoma on the state on the ballot as a state question. And again, the governor has power over the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State sets when that question will be on the ballot. And we would move that forward as fast as we could within the law to make sure that Oklahomans have a say. And I know Oklahomans would want to protect reproductive health care.
All right. So. The last question that I have is going to, your last subject matter is going to be about the Department of Human Services and reforming that program as well. I have a near and dear friend of mine who is a foster parent who has experienced nothing but difficulties working with the Department of Human Services. The current governor had put out a bill, one family, one home, or one home, one child type thing for DHS. And that's a great thing for him to say. However, the program is got a lot of issues in it as well. And what would be your ideas or plans for reform for DHS?
Yeah. So this is another example where we don't resource our agencies well. And DHS is one of the more difficult agencies because they have so much, they're helping they're helping children, they're helping aging population. They're human services, which is not an easy task. And I know that Oklahomans who are child welfare workers, I've heard, again, horrific stories of what's going on. Many who leave the work who are very passionate, but because they're not compensated well, they don't have the resources that they need. I think I did read a little something about your friend, I'm assuming, who had fostering a child with special needs that didn't get access to a special needs bed. Was it bed or bedding? So these types of things that need to be fixed. And this, again, reprioritizing our tax dollars, having people in charge who care about Oklahomans and want to make sure that Oklahomans get the best services that they can. I've also supported increasing the reimbursement rate, and unfortunately that didn't make it through for foster families, because the reality is, if you look at Oklahoma, they're not like a bunch of super wealthy people. You know, people are struggling, but they're very compassionate and they're very family oriented, and they and I'm sure your friend is the same way, and many of us in this room who want to take care of children. And God, the other day, on Saturday, I met a teacher who is now a full guardian of one of her students because her, you know, and even on Monday night. Okay, see, so it's everywhere. So people want to help, but also the reality of having financial strain, and how do they want to open their homes, they want to be able to do these things, but they need the state to work alongside them and walk alongside them to do that. So looking at all of DHS and reforming processes and better resourcing, getting people, and we have to understand that, you know, state workers, they're underpaid. They've yet to get a COLA, you know, they're for the retirees, but they're suffering too and not feeling supported by their government and their leaders. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
we did it.
Couple more things.
Okay.
It's a final message. So, what message would you like to leave with Oklahoma medical marijuana patients, caregivers, and small business owners watching this show tonight?
Yeah, I would hope that this conversation and I help you see a little bit more of who I am as a person. That clearly there's still a lot to learn, but that I do support the medical marijuana program. I want to protect it. I want to make sure that businesses are protected, patients are protected, and that my priority is to listen to the experts, meaning who's living in this, who has a lived experience, and making sure that you all don't feel, it breaks my heart to hear that people feel like criminals when they're legitimate business owners and you're not feeling supported by your government and by your leaders. And I hope that tonight through conversation, I've expressed that I want to support you. I want to help you. I want to protect the program. And I will do that as Oklahoma's next governor.
All right.
I keep seeing the comments. I'm like, oh, what are
All right, so campaign information,
yes.
Where people can follow you at and learn more about you on your platform. And so I know my producer has that, and Jill, if you can pull that up on there, that TikTok and Instagram again.
Yes.
I believe it's Cyndi Munson, okay?
Yes.
On TikTok, Instagram,
Facebook.
and
Facebook.
Facebook is just Cyndi Munson.
Yeah, I think the handle's that's Cyndi Munson, okay, but yes, when you search me, it's just Cyndi Munson. Cyndi and Munson, you're not going to get a lot of. That's my personal, that I don't even really post there that much anymore. But yeah, if you go to my official, my campaign account, that's where you'll see more of where we're at across the state if you want to come meet in person, and where I put more information about my policy stances and things like that.
Are there any remaining questions from the audience at this time? Chrissy?
In Oklahoma, we all know that it's predominantly Republican. Why now did you choose to run? What are you going to do to outweigh the Republican mandate in Oklahoma?
Well, it's an open seat, so that provides opportunity. I think when you don't have an incumbent running for governor, that people are more open-minded. It gives us all an opportunity to rethink and re-envision what our state could look like. Serving in the legislature now for 11 years, I could have ran for re-election one more time before I was term limited. I won a special election, which is why my years are a little weird, and typically be 10, but I'm at 11 because I served 1 year that doesn't count towards my term limit. And what I've seen over and over again is one party control is not working for us. But nearly 20 years, Republicans have had the opportunity to improve Oklahoma. And we went from 17th in the nation for public ed, quality public ed, to 50th. We're near the bottom for healthcare. People have to work multiple jobs right now to make ends meet. And what we're seeing, not just in Oklahoma, but across the country, is that people who hold the most power have no idea what everyday people are going through. Okay. There are plenty of candidates on the other side of the aisle who are writing and loaning themselves millions of dollars to hold the highest position in state government. What Oklahoman can do that? What Oklahoman can just write a check and say, put me in power? Okay, I have a deep passion for our state and our people. That's why my story and why I share my story is so important, because I would not be sitting here today if Oklahomans didn't invest in me. And I have tried. I mean, questions that you all have asked, people have asked as I've traveled around the state, what has she done? What is she going to do? You look at my record, check out all my votes, but look at the legislation that I have filed as well. All of it has surrounded around improving our criminal justice system, making sure that working families have access to the things that they need, helping our children. These are things that this is what strengthens an economy and strengthens a state. And I knew there wasn't going to be anyone on the other side of the aisle who is going to focus on us. And I think now is the time. And I have, like I mentioned, I have been knocking doors for over a decade. I actually started in 2013 because that's when I first started running for office. I lost my first race. And I have talked to registered Republicans, Independents, Democrats, Libertarians. I represent a district that was represented by Mary Fallon, you know, former governor. And so this was a deeply Republican-held stronghold until I was elected. And what I learned through those conversations is we have way more in common than we don't. And what we continue to see, and what we see right now in this governor's race, is divisiveness, marginalization, calling people's names, bending over to the president and Republicans in the White House, and not focusing on Oklahomans. And I knew that I would be the one to do that, and that's what I'm doing, and what I'll continue to do as governor. Now is the time. Now is the time. And voter turnout, we got to increase that. That's why we end up where we're at. And gerrymandering, which we can talk about later, but there was another question. Unless that was the question. Yes.
So, I personally feel like the rich either get taken care of or I feel like a lot of people in the middle class feel unemployed.
Yes. Right.
It is, I mean, it's really hard as parents working and you see services like, oh, I'm going to try for that because we're trying to, we might need help but qualify.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a train wreck after that.
Yeah.
So is there any way, any plan to help all parties?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree. I think even, you know, where I would have a critique even with the Democratic Party is that, you know, we've sort of, you know, in some ways, although I think we're getting better now, lost our way around really speaking to working families. And what I mean by working families is that we all have to go to work, and we may have to work multiple jobs just to like do basic stuff. And that doesn't matter what party you're in. That is happening to a lot of Oklahomans and Americans. And I think the reason why we've gotten away from that is that we don't have, a lot of times the party won't support, you know, and I'm talking more like at a national level. It's really difficult as a regular everyday person to run for office. I can tell you how hard it is. Talk to my team and ask them, you know, every dollar that I have raised since I started running, I am on the phones for multiple hours a day. I am meeting with people face to face. And where I am so inspired and encouraged is that there are more people like me who are supporting me. And that means they are buying into my vision, and that they see that this could actually come to fruition. They believe in me because I believe in them. And it's been increasingly harder, even as I'm the Democratic leader in the House. I've been in for over a decade, like I've shared, and talking to people with more power and all that has been really hard. They don't want to see me as governor. Because that breaks exactly what you're talking about, where we start to prioritize a different set of people, which is the majority of us that sit in the middle. And to your point about just financial challenges that we face, majority of Oklahomans are making between $65,000 and $75,000 a year, and they're raising families on that, and it's impossible. That's why they're having to work extra jobs. That's why I believe the minimum wage state question is going to pass, because people are tired of living like this. But when we have these tax cuts, which all sound great, who wants to pay less taxes? Everybody, okay? But when we make these across the board tax cuts, they don't trickle down to middle class families or lower income families. So when you go to my website or you hear me talking about targeted relief, there are different credits and programs that we can put in place that actually help a working family versus, and it protects our revenue, because we're talking about OMMA, DHS. We haven't even talked about all the other agencies that also need support. So we have to protect that revenue so that we also have good schools and we have roads that don't have potholes, because when they have potholes, we have to buy new tires and put alignment on our car, and who has time or money for that? And so, so that's really where I'm focused and where I have been. And I've been disappointed that, because these two tax credit programs, one, the sales tax relief credit, expanding it, modernizing, it's already on the books, but right now working personally gets like $40. And I want to expand it to $200 per person. Those are all the details. And the earned income tax credit. These are two programs that Republicans historically have supported. And I think part of why they don't move through the process is because we don't have enough balance in state government, and we don't have the vision at the top. When a governor says, I'm going to cut income taxes and I want a pathway to zero, you already sort of know their vision, right? We know what they're going to sign, what they're not going to sign into law. And that's why it is important to have a new governor with a new vision, with new priorities, because it will change. I won't be in control of the legislature by any means, but I can find partners who want to solve these problems too. And I've done it. I've had to. That's how I get things done as a Democrat in Oklahoma.
So I have a couple more pieces of,
There's one more question. Sorry.
Okay, no.
A lot of people talk about, a lot of candidates, I think, across the political divide, I think a lot of candidates talk about transparency, they talk about accountability, and obviously we were talking earlier about government money being siphoned to different interests, maybe not really in the best interest of public. The example of Oklahoma for the last 7 years has had a $30+ million budget a year. What have they really done? And it's like Summer and all these people advocating for patient safety, not even advocating for patient safety, not ensuring patient safety, yet that's the whole purpose of your agency.
Yeah.
So a lot of candidates talk about transparency. These are nice buzzwords, like, not trying to be rude or anything at all. These are very nice buzzwords, but truly, there's already systems in place to hold accountable, like with open records requests, taking forever to come back. Like how me as a voter, how am I going to trust really any candidate that says nice words? I get it, it sounds great. Well, we're going to get educated people in here that actually know what's going on in the industry. How do we ensure that those people aren't coming to the same beast that we're fighting against right now? So for me, you talk about transparency, people talk about transparency. I think if there was a real candidate that could bridge that gap between polar divides and actually have visions and policies that actually said, if you're not transparent within government money or government spending, there will be accountability. Rather than the buzzwords, and then it just pushed off with business as usual, because powerful interests won the case and the governor got signed. So as a leader for governor, it would just be so huge and monumental for me as an individual to see, and I think for a lot of people that are in that polar divide, the political divides, to see actually someone go, yeah, actually, this is actually what the accountability will be. And we're experiencing that in our own state government. Where is the accountability? When we call out things directly and then even bring proof and evidence, falls on deaf ears, doesn't matter. You'll get brushed off to the side. So I mean, just for me, and I think maybe hopefully other people who are here, it's like, what policy, what ideas could you implement, or what ideas do you actually have in order to have that accountability trickle down to all the agencies? We know it's not just OMA. A lot of agencies are upside down and funding from what we hear. We go up to Capitol, we don't have lobbyist money, we go to Capitol, we talk to a lot of people about issues. We bring facts after facts, and this guy brings people. I mean, this guy does so much extra work, like insane amounts of work. Like, this guy works like 16-hour days. On top of that, doing more and more research, just for like nothing, just for people to. We can get to a point before we can go to the Capitol where we're like, is it even worth it? Like, is it even worth it to go and bring facts over and over to these people and then talk to everybody else and nothing happens? No accountability happens, no new progress, no new changes. So, like, for you as a governor, I'm sorry, that's a lot of rambling. For you running for governor, what will you do to hold this stuff accountable? So the positions of power, the whole same cycles don't keep regurgitating. We don't need the same beast. We're now. Yeah, maybe we have better people in certain positions, but are those better people going to not be sucked in by the beast? About power dynamics and how the systems typically work. Sorry, that's a lot.
It's okay.
So oversight and transparency, I think, is where he's going with
that. Yeah.
So, is how would you ensure that those things were done in each agency, not just the LMA?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to say anything that changes your mind. I think there's deep apathy there, and I totally understand because you don't have a responsive government right now. All I can tell you is I'm looking you in the eye. I'm sitting in the same room with you, and that accountability and transparency is important to me. And if someone's not following the law and Oklahomans are coming and doing exactly what you're saying, then yes, there needs to be, there'll be accountability, and that people will likely lose their jobs. But the governor doesn't have power over everything. Now, I will have power over appointments of agencies and things like that, but this governor, contrary to what he thinks, you're not queen or king of the state. The unfortunate thing is that we do have to work through a legislative process on some of these things. And with open records, that is across the board, regardless of party, regardless of agency, that has been a very big problem that you as a taxpayer do have power over to have more transparency in your government. And we have been working to put more teeth and enforcement for open records. But when you have one party control, this is what we're living in. We also, and again, as governor, I can't change this, but I'll tell you where my head is at. We need more public comment through the legislative process. I'm sure you all come and sat through Senate committee hearings, House committee hearings, but you don't get a chance to speak. The Senate Democrats and the House Democrats have worked this year to, while it's not in an official capacity because we're not in power, we have held space at the Capitol for people to come and free range, come and talk and share about what. Now, does it fix everything? No. And I'm not trying to convince you of that, but we are trying to figure out ways too to navigate how do we make the people's voice more powerful and really agencies, myself, should I become governor, as state representative, every elected official needs to be held accountable and be most transparent to the people, not to the governor, to the people. But yeah,
there's cameras and cell phones everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, why is every room that has a legislator? How come your rooms aren't being live streamed? So
well,
see who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You can actually see who you're fighting. Yeah. Because after someone just loses their job, cool. But the powerful interest that actually had that legislator make that decision that created a consequence and a ripple effect in the economy and in the business owners. At the end of the day, cool, that person lost their job, but the other people that were doing something honest got pushed out of business because of the legislator making a decision.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fix anything.
Yeah.
The damage is already done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I said I'd give you a couple more documents, the record, finishing that part. So one of the consensuses from the businesses is that there is constant change in the rules, regulations, and what they're required to do. So this is just a piece just to show you literally how many bills affect medical cannabis just for the 2026 legislative session. And then CANRA is the Cannabis Regulators Association. Director Berry is currently the president of CANRA. So I would like to give you the most recent report from CANRA to also go with ours. Yep. And I would also like to give you the most recent letter from the Department of Agriculture in regards to hemp and synthetic products for the state of Oklahoma. And as a governor, I would also ask you if you would be willing to outlaw the intoxicating inhalable products that are being sold at our gas stations, bodegas, vape shops, liquor stores, and grocery stores that are untested, unregulated, harmful products, not just to our youth, but to us.
To everybody, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
And lastly, we'd love to invite you back on June 11th.
I love all my papers.
June 11th, we will be hosting another webinar type event here again, and we will have the founder from the Americans for Safe Access here, Steph Scherer, and excited to have her here. And this is going to be something that Dr. McNabb, Stephanie, Katie, myself, and others will be involved in, Austin, and a few more. And so you're more than welcome to attend if you have the availability.
Great.
And learn some more from us on a national level.
Great.
So,
Great.
guys,
you.
Thank you so much today.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
Guys, My producer is going to close us out with some commercials and stuff, but this is all you've got from candidate for governor, Cyndi Munson, and Summer Parker, Patience and Safe Access. Catch you next week. Thanks, Cyndi.
Summer Parker leading the way, shining bright like the healing rays. 420 patience.